Hey guys, I am going to be doing a lecture today from our chapter 6. You can find it underneath my topics. It's the infectious disease and defenses. Let me see if I can pull this up here. There we go. So this is actually a really great chapter for us to be doing, considering that we are in the pandemic that we are with COVID-19. So it's talking about basically infectious diseases and where they come from. How fitting. So if you want to follow along, that is, I believe it's 6.2. So diseases. Disease basically is any condition that interferes with normal functioning of the body. And then we call pathology the study of diseases. We have two types of diseases. We have an infectious disease. That is basically what we are looking at now. Quinn, stop. Infectious disease, which is invading pathogens such as bacteria, viruses like COVID-19, or fungi. And then we have non-infectious diseases that can result from factors like aging, malnutrition, hormonal balances, developmental problems, or malfunctioning organs or systems. So how long do they last? Well, acute diseases are what we call diseases that last just a short period of time, or they can also just occur suddenly. So we call those acute diseases. Example for that would be the cold or a flu. But we also have a chronic disease, and that is, it's a long time disease. It keeps recurring. It can recur often. A chronic disease example would be like heart disease or diabetes. Those are considered a chronic disease. They can last a long time, or you can have flare-ups. Two types of infectious diseases. Communicable means that they can spread from one person to another person, or non-communicable cannot be spread from person to person. So if you look at the base of those words, communicable, that makes sense. Communicate, you're communicating this disease from person to person. Non-communicable, it's not spreading from person to person. Bacteria. Bacteria are basically this microscopic single-celled organism. We have a bacterial infection. That would be tonsillitis or strep throat, heaven forbid, syphilis. That is also caused from a bacteria. Anaerobic bacteria, that type of bacteria lives without oxygen. Anaerobic is without oxygen. Aerobic with oxygen, right? And then viruses. So that is what we're looking at right now with COVID-19. That is a tiny capsule of genetic information that reprogram a living cell to produce new virus particles. So everybody sees right now in the media, they have these like little balls with the little outside proteins that are on the surface of the virus that you see for COVID-19. So think of those little tiny capsules that contains the genetic information that they can reprogram a living cell to produce new tiny virus particles. So that's what viruses are. Common cold, influenza, chickenpox. I made this slide before we had COVID-19. But those common cold, influenza, chickenpox, all communicable, all spreadable from person to person, right? But we have like things like encephalitis, which is swelling of your brain, and rabies. Those are non-communicable. It's still a virus. It's still caused by a virus, but you cannot spread that type of virus, such as encephalitis and rabies. You can get it, however. Rabies, we know you can get from diseased animals for sure if they bite you, but you are not going to, if you have rabies, you are not going to just spread it to someone by coughing or sneezing, or it's not passed that way. So viruses are very specific. Protozoa. These also can cause diseases. These are microscopic single-celled creatures that kind of resemble many animals, like little tiny animals. Example would be malaria or African sleeping sickness. These can be acquired through insects. You might also think of any type of malaria, specifically from Africa, or the African sleeping sickness. Those are basically carried and passed along through insects. Fungi. Relatively, actually, few infectious diseases are caused by fungi, but you can get some from certain types of yeast and molds. Ringworm is a good one, athlete's feet. I would bet that there is somebody watching this video right now that has had athlete's feet. Your foot gets really itchy. At the bottom, it can kind of be a little bit painful. It can be hot, kind of delicate to the touch. When you have athlete's feet, it's usually really, really itchy though, but that is actually caused from fungus. So 5 ways infectious diseases are spread. Airborne, spread through the air. We know that right now with our COVID-19 example. That can actually be these particles can be spread through the air. You sneeze, cough. So it's basically airborne and it's spread through the air. Again, cold, chickenpox, COVID-19. Contaminated surfaces. Well, one of the things about this COVID-19 is that they are finding that this virus actually can survive on surfaces for a longer time than a lot of other viruses. So if you touch a contaminated surface, or if somebody else has touched a surface that was sick, and then you touch it, and you touch then your eyes or your mouth, you can then get that disease. So that's why we are strongly encouraging for you to wash your hands, and to wash it at least 20 minutes with soap. So you don't just kind of throw it under water. That doesn't do anything. You actually need the soap to actually break apart that virus capsule on your hands and actually destroy the virus that's on your hands. So wash, 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 because you can touch a contaminated surface and become infected with COVID-19 or other certain types of infectious diseases. So direct contact, body-to-body contact. The most common thing here that we can pass a type of disease is STDs. We've talked about some of these sexually transmitted diseases, also chickenpox. Those can be caused by actually direct body-to-body contact. Another way is through infected animals. You can receive this type of contact through other animals or insects. So we call that a vector. So a vector is an animal that transmits the infection. The African sleeping sickness was caused from a fly. The bubonic plague was a rat flea. Encephalitis is from a mosquito. Lyme disease is from a deer tick. Malaria is mosquito. Rabies is also transmitted from an animal. Typhus is from a mouse. A louse or a mice or a mite. I'm sorry, I'm sleepy. Or a flea. And then yellow fever is from a mosquito. I should say mosquito there. And of course, we know that COVID-19, we are pretty certain that it was from an infected animal, such as a bat. There's been different suggested theories that it could be from either a bat or some other animals that was in a market in the Wuhan in the Wuhan province. So anyway, that's another way we can spread these infectious diseases. And then also number 5 can be from contaminated food and water. So cholera is contaminated water. You can look through the rest of these. Amoebic dysentery from contaminated water. That's actually really common in Africa. Places that don't have clean drinking water, you can get really, really sick from contaminated food and water. E. coli, you can get hepatitis A, salmonella, staphylococcus. Just so many different types of diseases can be transmitted through contaminated food and water. So you really have to be careful, when you travel, and with your food and water sources. So immunity against disease, that is kind of like the big topic right now, especially with COVID-19. What type of immunity will you have against these diseases? If you've already had it, will you be able to be infected again with COVID-19? So immunity is basically the condition of resistance to a particular cell. So we call them memory cells. Memory cells are produced after you've actually been infected, and you have a faster response to your immunity. We have three types of immunity: acquired. That is acquired as a result of a previous encounter. So if you've been infected by a virus or some other type of disease, and you can build up an acquired immunity from being sick. Inborn, it helps protect infants and newborns. It's just basically the antibodies from their mother. It's passed on, so it's inborn. They're not going to have they're going to have immunity against certain diseases that's passed along from the mother's antibodies. And then we have what's called species immunity. That means certain pathogens only affect one type of organism. So, for instance, if you're there's been a lot of talk in the news about people having put their animals up for adoption, afraid that their animals could actually give them COVID-19, but it's known pretty well that it is not a virus that is spread from animals to humans, certain mammals like that. Your basically your dogs and cats are not going to get COVID-19 from you. We're not passing this virus on to our dogs, and likewise, your dogs are not passing this on to us. So it's this disease is actually species specific. So medical defenses, vaccination is basically when we're introducing pathogens into the body to provoke the immune system and to develop our immunity. I've heard a lot of talk about people thinking that, we can get a vaccine sooner rather than later, but we will have to go through a lot of regulations before we'll have that vaccine. So it's going to be probably longer than what people are hoping. It has to be that way. You have to make sure that the vaccine that you are introducing to a population is safe for the population to take. Also, drugs are chemical means to treat these diseases. Right now, they're finding, especially, I'm just keep talking about COVID-19, obviously, because we're in this pandemic, but certain drugs or chemicals to actually treat the diseases. Right now, they're finding that high doses of vitamin C and zinc are very, very helpful to treat a person with COVID-19. That's basically because this virus, for some reason, is depleting these sources of vitamins in your body. And they find that people are responding a lot better when they have really, really high doses. I believe it's 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C, like 3 times a day or something. So it's a lot of vitamin C and zinc as well. And then we also can have antibiotics. Those are substances produced by bacteria, molds, and other organisms that actually stop the growth of specifically of bacteria. So these are medical defenses that we can use against certain diseases. And you know what? I think that is it for this chapter. It is. So that's basically what I wanted to go over with you guys today. I hope this maybe, gives you a little more insight into what we're dealing with as far as COVID-19, and really makes you stop and think why we're washing our hands, why we are where we are currently without a vaccine. Just one small point I'd like to make with you guys. The problem with any type of disease like this is when you introduce a living organism, such as this virus, into a population that has basically no competition or no predators, and this virus is just free to thrive, that's when you can have what's called exponential growth, right? So this virus can just spread like wildfire because there's no antivirals to it, and there's nothing basically that can stop it from spreading. So the way that we stop the virus from spreading is to stop people from moving. So I just wanted to make that point to you guys. Please try to social distance. This virus is tricky in the way that you can be infected and be asymptomatic, meaning you do not have symptoms of the virus. And so you can be spreading it without even knowing. So I just wanted to kind of make that point. I think it's kind of interesting that we are in this particular part of our series right in the middle of this pandemic. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. We'll have some questions on this tomorrow, but I just wanted you to go through this slideshow with me. If you have any questions, I am always available from 1 to 3 on Google Hangouts, and I hope you all are doing well.